Chapter 2 Forest Dwellers.
Pearl wakes again later that day, or maybe the next. She isn't entirely sure. She finds herself beneath the Bodhi tree. Her body feels stiff with sleep, and her thoughts turn to Om. She calls out her name several times.
Om. Om. Om?
But never a response. She feels slightly abandoned as she sits there for a long time, just staring, with her mind fixed on the first memories shared with the architect of her destiny. Desperately, she tries to remember anything before the encounter, but try as she might, she cannot. It is the first day of her life, not only for herself, but for the idea of self. She is the first to know the natural world, the first to know she is a part of it. Everything looks new, unexplored, and awaiting her discovery. All she need to do is go forth and use her inquisitive young mind. Every detail of the world before her is a fiction, waiting to be named. The Bodhi, Pearl, and Om are the only things that have been named for her, and the remainder will become whatever she wills. Most of the time, when she looks at any random thing, a word for it comes to mind. Sky, sun, cloud, sea, forest. Words she's never thought or heard, yet they immediately feel correct. Her head feels fuzzy, every sense mildly overwhelmed. For a moment, she begins to wonder if her memory of Om was imagined. The scenery around her is exactly like it had been. The only thing missing is Om's magnificent glow. She looks up at the Bodhi and finds the fruit have all been plucked from the branches. Om must have done it to save her the effort of having to climb up there herself. That's when she notices something lying against the tree that she decides to name Satchel, and the Bodhi fruit lying in a neat pile next to it. She picks one up. It's soft, yet firm, with a fuzzy dark purple outer skin, and it smells absolutely delicious. But she avoids the temptation to take another for herself. It's the perfect size for her to cup in her hand, and feels light as a feather. She places the one she examines in the satchel, then gently picks up the rest, one by one, placing them inside with the others before closing the satchel's flap and hanging it over her shoulder by the attached strap. For some time she remains there, not sure if she's making the right choice in moving on from this place. Unable to think of anything else to do, she waits. She doesn't know where Om is, or if she's ever coming back. Deciding the best way is forward, she takes her first steps toward the nearby forested area, and almost immediately trips, falling into the soft green foliage that she decides to name grass. Her hair is a mess from the fall, filled with dirt and debris, and now covering much of her face. It's light brown in color and highlighted by the morning light. Thick, wavy, and long, it falls to the small of her back when pushed away from her face. She pulls herself up from the fall, her yellow dress no longer as bright as it was, and continues forward, trying to be a little more aware of what she's doing. The trees ahead are dark in color, compared with the pale wood of the Bodhi. She names them Jang, while lightly running her fingers over the rough bark of the first one she encounters. Quickly, she begins naming every new thing she finds with the first word that comes to mind. Moss, vines, mushrooms, flowers, each coming in different varieties, each deserving of their own unique name. She continues that way until she's swallowed up by the enormous trees, unable to see the edge of the forest behind her, and all the plants around her have become duplicates of those she's already named. She dips her head to sniff a large purple flower, and decides to name it Fusa. It buds out of a vine that snakes its way around the trunk of the nearest Jang tree. As she removes her nose from the flower's fragrant center, she sees her first animal. A furry creature, poking its head around the same tree, and looking at her inquisitively.
Well, hello.
She says to the little creature.
And what shall I call you?
He's momentarily shocked by the complicated noise that is her speech, seemingly petrified by it, but eventually the small animal decides to trust her in spite of it. Slowly the creature approaches, but stops just out of reach and rises to his hind feet, which are more like paws, unlike her own. He cocks his head to the side, studying the queerness of her appearance. Standing at about half her own height, he's completely covered by a soft red coat of fur, from the top of his head, with its big pointed ears, all the way down to the tip of his long tail, swishing silently behind him. He drops back to all fours and comes closer to sniff at the hem of her dress, then falls over and rolls onto his back, exposing his soft underbelly to her in a gesture of trust. She can't help but smile at this creature's cute display.
I'll call your kind Rolot.
She says to him. The Rolot sits back on his haunches and looks at her like he has no idea what she's talking about, then suddenly becomes alert to the presence of something that Pearl hadn't noticed. She sees it then. At first, it's just the rustling of a bush, but then a small gray man steps out, his teeth bared in a threatening growl. The Rolot moves with incredible quickness to hide himself behind Pearl. The gray man is only slightly taller than the Rolot, and his large black eyes stand out as a defining feature. His pupils are like little white clouds floating around in an otherwise dark abyss, and they dart back and forth between the Rolot and Pearl, sizing them up. His skin is hairless, with a similar texture to Pearl's, and uniformly gray all over. In his hand, he's holding a large, heavy-looking stick that he'd obviously intended to use as a weapon. Pearl names his kind Gray in her mind. They remain in a tense standoff like that for some time until, without Pearl noticing, the Rolot hiding behind her legs reaches into her satchel, pulls out one of the Bodhi, and throws it at the Gray. It hits him square in the chest, and he instantly becomes hostile, throwing his arms in the air and screeching, trying to scare them off rather than fight them both. When they don't make a move to leave, he slowly reaches down to pick up the fruit thrown at him. Pearl dives for the precious Bodhi to steal it back, but he swings at her with his club, snatches it away, and darts into the brush. Pearl pushes herself up, her hair all rustled from the fall. She considers going after him, but it's too late. He knows these woods better than she does, and has probably lived his whole life here. Maybe she has too, but if she has no memory of it. The Bodhi will never spoil. Ohm had told her that much. If the Gray chooses not to take a bite of it, something else eventually will. Waking up to consciousness is a disorienting feeling, she knows, and it could be unbearable if one had to endure it utterly alone. She had Ohm, and now he'll have her. She continues on, though the sky gets darker, and she does her best to track the Gray, all the while keeping her eyes open for any signs of the Bodhi, in case he discarded it. Meanwhile, her friendly Rolot follows right behind, keeping a curious yet skeptical distance. Soon the sky becomes too dark for her to attempt following any trail, and she and her Rolot curl up under a jang tree that must be 10 times her own height, and they both fall fast asleep, comforted by each other's company. She's not sure how late it is when she wakes up to a blood-curdling scream. The Rolot pops up next to her, looking in the direction the scream had come from. He gets up and starts moving toward it, then stops to look back at her, beckoning her to follow. They find the Gray about 50 paces from where they slept, convulsing on the ground with the Bodhi fruit lying just beyond the reach of his arm spasms. Pearl picks up the Bodhi, which has already begun to rot much faster than any normal fruit should, now that it's been bitten into. She gently tosses it away, and it smashes against a nearby tree, nothing left of it but a moldy pulp. The Gray's spasms end abruptly, and he lay there, deathly still. Neither of them moves to approach, remembering their last encounter, yet they stay there with him regardless, just out of arm's reach. Light and warmth return to the day long before the Gray makes any sign that he's alive. Just the smallest of movements in his fingers at first. Then his eyes, which had been solid black while he was unconscious, slowly regain their pupils of cloudy white. Eventually he sits up and looks calmly around, faced away from Pearl and the Rolot, unaware of their presence. Pearl breaks the silence.
Hello.
Her voice is soft and inviting.
Would you like any help?